Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And today I'm going to be talking about a launch, but not a podcast launch like you think. Because launching a podcast as a host is no small feat, right? It's like pushing a boulder up a hill. There's strategy sessions, tech setups, artwork, marketing plans. There's even entire companies that are dedicated to helping podcast hosts create a launch. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that guesting should also be treated like a launch. You may not be building the platform yourself, but you're launching your message, your credibility, your brand every single time that you guest. And just like a podcast launch, if you go in without a plan, you're leaving a lot of opportunity and ROI on the table. Most people treat guesting like, oh, I'll just pick a topic, I'll show up, answer questions, and leads will come, swarming in. That might have worked years ago, but not anymore. Guesting now without a strategy is like launching a podcast without a plan. You'll show up, but it won't scale and it won't get you leads, clients, and other opportunities. That's exactly why I created the Podcast Guesting Unsummit on November 18th and 19th. And you can head to Podcast Guesting Unsummit for details. It is free because just like a podcast launch, you need a guesting launch plan as well. So let's look at this launch plan, if you will, in different stages. So before the interview, before you even start podcast guesting, you need to have a game plan. So think of it as kind of like the pre-launch phase. It's all where all the foundation gets built. So here are some of the things that you need to have in place. One, your bio. Do you have a written one that grabs attention, positions you as an expert, and wows the host and listeners, and that the host can use when they're introducing you on the podcast? Do you have a interview GPS? Now, these are interview questions that you give the host, and they're kind of like your conversation compass. It keeps the conversation focused and sets you up to position yourself as an expert and be strategic about how you share your insights, because it's more than just sharing tips. Your talking points. Are they clear? Are they concise? Do you have them planned out ahead of time? Do you have the little sound bites that you can say that are short and snappy for when they do create reels and content from the episode? And you want to be able to share your methodology, your framework, have catchy titles and terms that grab attention from the listeners without being confusing. And of course, your podcast topic is equally as important. I call this a billboard ready topic because it needs to get you hooked, booked, and heard. It needs to hook the host to want to book you on the podcast, but it also needs to hook the listener to want to listen to the episode and be engaged with your content. Another thing that's really important is thinking about story sound bites, because facts tell and stories sell, and they can help the listeners see and like get a feel for how you are the solution, how you work with people, the results that you're getting without being super salesy. And your offer on ramp, it's your call to action. So you need to know how to bridge the conversation into your world and convert those listeners to leads, whether it's a lead magnet or a quiz or a free training. But it needs to be something that is the natural next step from that conversation and that they want to jump at grabbing. All of these elements actually are a part of my Conversations That Convert program. And so it's just making sure that the conversation itself is super strategic before you start hitting record. Now, let's look at your booking strategy, right? Everyone thinks about pitching, like what shows you should be on. So you really have to think about that from a strategic perspective. The types of shows that you guest on. Where is your audience hanging out? Where are your ideal clients hanging out? What kind of podcasts are they listening to? And how are you pitching yourself? Are you using an agency or a matching platform? And do you have a system for getting consistent bookings? And you also need to pitch a pitch that is focused on the audience and the host. What's in it for them? You want to make it as easy as possible for the host to check off those boxes saying, yep, they're credible. Yep, they're an expert. I know exactly what their topic is and what kind of value they're going to bring to my show. And there are certain styles of podcast pitches that work and some that definitely don't. We've all heard horror stories on social media. I honestly will delete many in a day because, quite frankly, they totally suck. They are brutal. Just copy and paste and move on. It's not a numbers game, it's a relationship game. So, being really strategic about that is super important. Another aspect that you want to think about ahead of time is, are you recording ready? It's more than just turning on your computer and recording. Do you have a good camera? Do you have a good podcast mic? Do you have lighting? What is your background like behind you? Because if you get on a podcast and there's like an echoey room with a window shining behind you or a light above you where it looks like a halo and you've got no mic, honestly, it's simply not acceptable. So you really need to think about your environment and the equipment that you're using. And it doesn't mean you need to spend a lot of money either. Now, what do you give when you do pitch? You often have a one sheet. For me, I honestly believe in the two sheet because I like to make sure that they have topics and interview questions for each topic. Because what happens often is one sheet will have 3 different topics, but then they'll have like an array of questions. And those questions can be like a little bit of this question and a little bit of that question. And what happens is the host grabs that one sheet and just reads off of it by default. And so in the end, the interview is like all over the place. There's no absolute focus, and the audience is left confused and they aren't really sure how you help people. So the two sheet, that's my little soapbox for today. So this is your media resume. You know, you got your bio on it. You're sharing your expertise, your credibility, your topic, your interview questions, your links, your social, all in one place. So it makes it super easy for the host to envision you as a guest. You may want to take it one step further and have a speaker or press page. In other words, having a page on your website that has information about you, your bio, your headshots, your link to your one sheets, your topics, maybe examples of shows that you've guested on or testimonials from shows that you've guested on. And it's just a super easy link for people to view everything in one spot. Plus, when podcast hosts or even your prospects are going to your website, they automatically see you as an expert. It boosts your credibility. And so you kind of get more bang for your buck with that. Now, at the Podcast Guesting Unsummit that I just mentioned ago, we are actually going to build many of those assets live. We've got 10 amazing guest experts. And so there'll be 10 mini workshops. They're each also giving a free gift. And so you're actually going to get things done during this event and leave with actual assets, like your bio, for example. So again, if you're curious, go to podcastguestingunsummit.com. So we've talked about before the interview. Now let's talk about during the interview, because you want to lead with intention. Once you're on the mic, this is where you bring it to life, right? And you want to guide the conversation. That's where that interview GPS comes in really handy, so that the guest knows which direction the conversation is going to go in, and they know what kind of value you're going to bring to the show. And it sets you up to easily talk about your talking points in a natural, conversational, organic way. I don't believe in scripts. And so that really helps keep that conversation going. And you want to stay focused, right? You want to keep your message clear and consistent so that listeners walk away with exactly understanding, knowing what you do and who you help. Yes, you want to be authentic, but you also want to be intentional. You want to be strategic about how you show up and leave a stronger impression for the host and the listeners. And because if you are a fabulous guest, ticking off all the boxes and wowing them, they are more likely to refer you to other podcasts. Now, this one's a biggie, is after the interview. This is often a part that kind of gets pushed to the wayside. It kind of gets forgotten, or I'll do that later, or they just don't realize the impact that it can have. And that is leveraging the episode once you're done. You need a marketing plan, a promotion plan, or repurposing plan. It is not enough to rely on the host to do all the heavy lifting. And honestly, maybe they don't know how to market. Maybe they create a weird title. Maybe they don't reflect your expertise really well with the reels that they're sharing. And so you want to take that control back and repurpose it so that you know how you're being positioned the way you want to. And so I have actually have a whole workshop on this within the podcast guesting unsummit. So I will resist the urge to give you all the tips right now, but know that you do need a plan to repurpose it, put it on your website, do the reels, and so forth. You want to multiply it, right? You want to share it across all the platforms, your email, your social, your website, YouTube, and you don't want to just post it once. You can plan so many pieces of content. It makes your life easier. And honestly, you can even repurpose your podcast guest episodes to help promote workshops that you have in the future, or your lead magnets, or working with you. Sure, when it goes live, you're going to push to the episode that you just went live, but you can use it for other purposes to get more leads and clients. So you can create reels, blogs, carousels, newsletters, um, quote graphics. You can even record an extra video on like a little tiny part of the conversation. So there are a ton of ways that you can leverage and repurpose that content to get more ROI and visibility out of it. And you also want to track and systematize this whole process. You've got a repurposing plan. You got to turn it into a system. How are you going to automate some of those pieces? How are you going to get some of the support? And how are you going to track, who you've pitched, where you've appeared, who you've connected with, what ROI you're seeing, and one of the speakers at the Unsummit actually is going to talk about automation and setting up that system. So that'll be amazing. And you want to follow up with the host. Send them a thank you note. Tag them in the posts. Look for collaboration opportunities for them and with them. So see who you can introduce them to make a great connection. It goes a long way. What if there's opportunities for you both to refer each other or work together or have like joint ventures or bundles or affiliate partnerships? I mean, there are so many options out there. Again, we're going to be talking about that within the podcast guesting unsummit as well. And where you're going to actually map out some of these pieces so that your visibility becomes a system, not a one-off effort. So guesting isn't just show up and talk. It just doesn't work anymore. It is strategic. It deserves strategy, assets, follow-up, just like any other major visibility campaign. And lucky for you, that's what we're going to be doing at the Podcast Guesting Unsummit. Again, it's very hands-on. It's a get it done kind of experience. I've wanted to do this for such a long time. I feel like a lot of the events that are out there are very focused on hosts. So I really want to make something that is for the guests to help them build a speaker page. live with Talks.co, create a one sheet, create some story sound bites and a call to action so that you know what your lead magnet is. And you're going to walk away with everything you need to pitch, guest, and convert confidently instead of winging it. So go to podcastguestingunsummit.com. It's November 18th and 19th from 1 to 4 each day, EST. Again, it's free. And grab your ticket now so that you can make a podcast guesting plan for yourself and really get all those pieces and kick off 2026 with everything done and ready to go to amplify your message and get that momentum. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope you join us at the Unsummit. Take care.